Live. Hi there. Oh, geez. Hey, look, new hair. I got new hair. Yeah, I got a new hairdo. This is a wig. I bought a new wig, as you can tell, and it was only $100. It was like $170 wig, and I got it for like $100 because they were discontinuing it. So I have this wig, all new hair. I got it on Monday, so I'm really feeling good about it. But it has one of these things where I do get hair in my face. Yeah, for the first few days is like, especially when I put it on first thing in the morning, it's usually like this. And I'm like, yeah, I forgot what it was like to have hair in your face. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's like if I had had long hair as a girl, and I'd wake up in the morning and it'd be hair all over my face, stuff like that. I like it. So yeah, the cold is here. I'm not gonna check the weather because I know the high today is supposed to be like 36, and it's been in the 30s during the day, like the whole week. So, uh, what can I say? Winter is here. As long as we don't have any White Walker zombies coming down Second Street, I'll be okay. Oh, so not much has really happened to me this week. I've really been kind of sitting on my butt. I've been applying for jobs. I never have heard back from the one job that I interviewed on like almost a month ago. So I'm assuming they've they've cut me loose without saying anything, which I feel is kind of a shitty thing. If you're going to interview somebody, at least tell them you're interested. I never heard anything. I've never heard anything, so I don't know. I really wanted that job. I did. I know it seems kind of strange, but I really did want that job. Something will come up. I know it will. I've actually been doing stuff like I'm just now like applying for administrative, like secretarial positions. I really have. It's like, oh, I can make $15 an hour in order in the daytime. Sold. I'll take it. I can do this. Really. I think I'm at that point in my life where the chances I'm actually going to go back into data processing are slim. I don't have a skill set, or let's just put it this way. I do have skill sets that are marketable, but to hear other people talk, I don't know how to market them. And to hear, nobody really wants to come right out and say, it's my age. It's my age or some shit like that. No one really wants to come out and say it. So we know, I know, I'm pretty age discrimination does exist. Let's put it that way. And when they see that I'm 61 years old and I've got like 35 years of experience and they only want to pay me $55,000, if that much, yeah. So I've just kind of like, now I know I have been presented to a state agency that is still collecting resumes until, from what I was told, the 13th. In fact, I've had 3 different groups contact me because for what this agency is looking for, there just aren't those kind of people in Harrisburg. And I even told them, I says, I know where the office is. The office is like 4 blocks from where I live. So it's like 10-minute walk for me. But I probably won't get that one either. I'll get something. Something's going to come along. It will. I keep saying that. And you got to kind of keep faith. I've been in this position before where I've been out of work for 3 years. This is coming up. I've been out of work for a year. And it is tough. But I've also kind of hitting the realization that I'm probably not going to get back into data processing. Just like I said, it's not going to happen. I don't see it happening. I'll probably get into something else. Maybe at some point I'll get hired, for like a nonprofit. And there's one thing I have to do. Today I'm going to apply for jobs working for the Census Bureau. Getting into government work, yeah. I'm going to apply for jobs working for the Census Bureau. So there you go. You could be coming to collect your census. I just have to remember like some of the episodes of the Three Stooges where they were census takers. I was a middle child of 7. I was the one. So you were the one they tossed out? No, I was the one they kept. I have to go back. Oh, geez. Three Stooges. About as politically incorrect as you could get. But some of the shit that they did is really cringeworthy. I mean, extremely cringeworthy when it comes to people of color. Yeah, it was the 30s. Sorry, it was the 30s. It was like I was talking to somebody a while back. I've actually had this conversation a couple of times, and what's come up is like how we actually view shit that was written 100 years ago or so, or even longer, and how we view it against the spectrum of how we view racism today. And for me, one of my favorite authors is H.P. Lovecraft, who I think just like did incredible things in the horror genre. But as a person, HP had a bit of a racism problem. Yeah. He was quite the colonialist. I mean, let's face it, he was. He was a white guy growing up in New England in the 1800s to the early 1900s. Yeah. Tell me he wasn't racist. I mean, come on, there's just, it's like I told one person, if you were a white person growing up from between like the beginning of the formation of the United States until like the 1960s, and you were a white person, you probably had a bit of racism going on in you. I know I did. I grew up in a racist family. I did. It took me a while to get that shit out of my system, but I'm upfront and honest about it. When I was a kid, the people in my family were like racist. They really were. And it took me a while to get out. There was stuff that I carried into my teenage years that it took me a while to get that out of my system. It really did, I think the real tipping point, and it was something I never told my parents, was when I was in going to community college. I dated a black girl twice. I went out twice with a black girl, which was something my parents had actually told me that if I ever dated a black girl, I would be completely disowned by the family. Seriously, they told me this all through the 1970s, and they even told me that into the 80s after I was married, that if I ever did that, I never said a word. I was like, okay. But yeah, I went out with a black girl twice when I was at community college, and she was really nice, and we had a good time. And yes, we did kiss. So there you go. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in a racist family. So getting back to H.P. Lovecraft, enough about me. Getting back to H.P. Lovecraft, yeah, he was a colonialist. He had some racist, really racist ideas. And, it comes out in some of his writing. And like I told one person, I said, I can't read The Horror of Red Hook, which is probably his most racist tome there is. I said, but I have to kind of look at him as a product of his time. And again, if you were a white person, especially if you were a white male growing up in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you were racist. You probably were. You were racist against someone. It didn't matter. It was either you were racist against them because of the color of their skin, or you're racist against them because of their religion. Because I had a, quote, friend in the 60s who did nothing but trash talk Catholics. And I was raised a Catholic. And this guy would actually, to my face, trash talk Catholics. And then say, but our family considers you guys okay. Thanks. I think about that now, and it's just like, man, that really is kind of like racist as hell when you think about it. It's bigoted as hell is really what it was. So I said, I have to kind of look at guys like H.P. Lovecraft and Margaret Sanger and Mark Twain and people like that who, while they did things that some people would look at and say, well, yeah, that was really quite helpful, quite liberal, or they started these movements and they did these things and they helped other people. At the same time, they had racist tendencies, and you couldn't get rid of that because it was just the environment in which they were brought up. And Lovecraft, while he had his racist tendencies, and we know this, he also did a hell of a lot towards empowering new writers, some of whom went on to become giants in the literary field. And you're going to say, well, horror and science fiction, literary field. One of the people that he pushed hard to become a better writer was Robert Bloch, who wrote this interesting little story back in the late 50s called Psycho. I think you might have heard of it. They made it into a movie. It wasn't really didn't make that much of an impression on people when it came out. It just made you so you didn't want to take a fucking shower for a few years afterwards. But yeah, Lovecraft used to write to all these writers, encouraging them to continue on with their writing. And like one critic pointed out, if Lovecraft had spent half the time he did writing to other writers, writing his own work, he probably would have produced like 2 or 3 times greater the amount of stories that he actually did. So that's one of the things. Yeah, he was a scumbag. He was a dumpster fire in terms of how he viewed other cultures that weren't white Protestant. Let's face it. And on the other hand, he wrote some great fiction and also encouraged other writers to become great writers. So I kind of have to look at him as like, I can read some of his stuff. I can read most of his stuff and kind of gloss over the fact that he was talking shit about a lot of different people simply because that's just the sort of environment he was raised in, and he couldn't get out of it. He didn't know how to get out of it. It's easier for us to say today because we do have a more diversified society. Like it or not, we do. It's easier for us to say today, well, they were all dumpster fires back then. But that really was the environment. Once you got up to the 1960s, however, the 1950s was probably the last great reign of the white male, straight Protestant dude, And then the 60s, it started changing. In the 70s, it started changing. And it's actually been changing despite all the pushback that's been coming from a certain segment of the country who tend to be white, male, Protestant, and straight. But yeah, after that, I mean, it'd be like, if I was this little racist, well, not little anymore, but if I was this old racist asshole who had grown up in the 60s and 70s, and I was still that racist asshole today, you know, I could get, getting roasted on social media would be a normal thing for me, because I would not have learned anything during that time. I would not have learned anything. And, any roasting I would get would be well deserved. But if you were to go back in time and meet Lovecraft, it would be almost impossible to get him out of his mindset, because that wasn't just his mindset. That was the mindset of everyone around him. And I have to really look at it that way, that the mindset of people around him was the same. It was self-enforcing. So I really can't look at something that Mark Twain wrote 150 years ago and say, well, we have to view it against the filter of today's society. Yeah, but today's society was not Missouri in the 1870s. Let's face it. Society in Missouri in the 1870s was what we would consider today a dumpster fire. It really was. And if you were a black person, but if you were Irish or Catholic, you are also like, It sort of reminds me of the line from Blazing Saddles, and I'll say it without using the racial epithets. When Black Bart brought over all the railroad workers to help the townspeople fight off the evil government who was trying to take their land. And he was like, it's all or not, it's like, we're going to help. And the townspeople are talking, and the mayor turns and goes, all right, the blacks and the Chinese can stay, but the Irish got to go. It really was kind of how it was back then. We'll only go so low. The Irish, they're below that line. And it was just like, okay, everybody comes. But yeah, it was weird. It was just, shit was weird back then. I mean, what are you going to do? It's like one person said, our country has always been kind of a dumpster fire when it comes to this sort of shit. It really has been. And let's face it, we were the last real colonial power. We were colonialists. We came into this territory and we took it over. And we kept taking it over. And we took it over from indigenous people. And we began setting up our society based on, our European whiteness. And we were the last great colonialist power. And it's been taking a long time for that shit to break. It's beginning to break, but it's not. There's still a lot of work. It could still be a dumpster fire for another 100 years. I won't be around to see it. Maybe my daughter will. Maybe nobody will. Who knows? The way shit's going anymore. I can't see the future. The fact that Steve Bannon was told he could not be the keynote speaker at a sex robot symposium in Montana this week, I looked at that and I'm like, as a writer, I completely failed seeing the future, because Steve Bannon and sex robots was just a concept I could not put together in my head. Yeah, you really do. It's just like, no, reality is always going to beat my ass. There's just no way in hell I'm ever going to come up with anything that good in fiction. Yeah. What are you going to do? Didn't write much today. Well, no, not today. It's only 9:12 in the morning. Didn't write much this week, but I did talk face to face, more or less. I did a face chat, a video chat with the real Annie. Yeah, I actually spoke to the real Annie, my friend Tanya, who created Annie. And we actually talked more about personal shit. She's had a lot of stuff going on in her life as well this last year. It's just like me. And we both agree 2018 needs to die slowly. It needs to die a slow, painful death. And we're both hoping that 2019 is way better. I mean, seriously, stop it. This is just so much shit you can take. So yeah, we actually talked for about an hour, and one of the things she brought up, thank you, Annie. One of the things she brought up was, do you remember you promised me a signed copy of your first novel? It's like, yeah, but I haven't published it yet. But I do have a friend who I think may, after the first year, I'm going to talk to her. She may help me actually get the first book published. So we'll see. But yeah, it was nice talking to Tanya and catching up on shit. And I reminded her that this was the only second time we'd actually spoken in all the years we've known each other. For, God, 8 years now. Yeah, for the 8 years we've known each other, that was only the second time we spoke on the phone. The second time we spoke voice to voice. And in reality, the first time was she called me because I was having a nervous breakdown, literally. And everybody got worried. People in my one group, I'm in my crocheting group, got worried that I was going to hurt myself. So they discovered the number for my phone because one person in the group was married to a police officer, and he tracked my number down. Seriously. They got my mobile number, and they gave it to Tanya, and she called me. And she talked me down, more or less. So I said, this is a better time. But I told her, I said, I'm going to try to call more often, once in a while, because I don't want to remain a stranger anymore. And I said, I feel like we haven't really spoke that much in the last few years, and I really miss it. I really miss not having conversations with you. So I said, I will do my best to try to keep in touch. Jesus. But it was a lot of fun. But yeah, she reminded me, you owe me a signed copy of your novel. Hold on. Somebody just put something under my door. Be right back. Oh, my neighbor. My neighbor is giving me a Christmas card. It's that time of year, Christmas cards. Thank you. From 107. Thank you. Got a Christmas card. So, yeah, last Saturday was my Derby ball, and I had a blast. Oh my God, I had a blast. Yeah, I did. It was, I was actually having a lot of trepidation. I actually started having a bit of a panic attack getting ready and leaving to go there. And I didn't take my anti-anxiety medication. So by the time I got there, I was in kind of like a really anxious state. And I had talk a little bit with one of my coaches, my head coach. And I was telling her, I said, like, oh my gosh, I was just so nervous and so anxious and everything else. And she talked me down and she helped me out. And we talked a little bit about our future and stuff like that. And, she said, you're an accepted member of the team. Don't ever think that you're not wanted here. So we talked a little bit, and I mingled, and I got up and I took photos, and I got up and sang twice. Yeah, we had karaoke. When it comes to Derby girls, hide to bourbon, hide to karaoke, especially the karaoke. And some of the stuff that the women were singing was just hilarious. Everybody had fun. But at the end of the night, the tots, that's us, the tots that were there, got up and we did a group sing, and we sang Wannabe by the Spice Girls. And I will actually include the photo in the blog. So if you want to see what I look like when I'm singing Wannabe with a bunch of my teammates, you will get the opportunity. It's really good that nobody recorded video of that event. Yeah. It was fun. It really was. And we were told afterwards, that was your initiation. You're initiated now. I had already gotten up. The first song I got up to sing was Somebody to Love by Queen. And yeah. Freddie, I don't want to say Freddie turned over in his grave a couple of times. But yeah. I kind of semi-butchered the song. I should know better. I love the song, but oh my God. Why did I pick that song? Yeah, I butchered it. I butchered it bad. Shit. But yeah, Wannabe was a lot of fun. And I even heard somebody say later, it was like, yeah, we had to let Cassidy handle all the rapping towards the end there. And I was like, blah, 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 blowing it pretty bad. But I made it through. I only have I had only heard the song like twice in my life before that point. So, but it was fun. It was great fun. When I got home that night, I was just like, so fucking great. I drank like 2/3 of a beer the entire night. Really, that was the whole night. I did not get drunk. I stayed sober because I had practice the next morning. And yeah, I did go to practice. Oh boy, did I go to practice. Yeah. I was at practice, yeah. But it was a great time. I really had a blast. I did. There was a lot of dancing, a lot of getting up, and a lot of people just getting up and singing, and food. It was a real informal kind of gathering, which I loved. And, we have such a huge team. All the people were there. And one of the things that they did was people got up and either did their new vows or renewed their existing vows with their Derby wives. And if you don't understand the concept of a Derby wife is like the person on the team who is going to be the closest to you. They're going to be the person, as they say in the vows, they're going to be the person that always has your back. They're going to be the person that's there to support you. They're going to be the person who's there to tell you when you're doing something wrong. They're going to be the person there who, when you're down, they're going to bring you up. They're going to be the person there to celebrate your joy when it comes. They're going to be the person who, when you need the ride to the hospital, they're going to give it to you. And they will be there and they will stay with you the whole time while you're getting your x-rays or CAT scans or whatever the hell it is you need. They're the person who is always going to have your back on the track unless they're scrimmaging against you. And then they're going to be the one who's going to hit you the hardest. And you're going to do the same thing to them. Derby wife is I don't want to say it's a sacred thing, but it kind of is. It used to be I guess a fairly prevalent thing. It's not so. It seems like it's not so prevalent these days, but still. And I actually started crying when they were doing the vows. See, like I'm doing now. Yeah. Because that's what I want one day. Shit. I'm a sucker for anything like that. I really am. But yeah, it was nice. It was even like Wednesday, I ran into one of my teammates who had just taken her vows, and I go, "Hey, where's your wife?" And she started laughing. She's like, she's off doing something else right now. So one of these days. One of these days. But practice it's ramping up. And I'm having to go back and work on some things. My plows have gotten to be shit again. I'm really, really, really struggling to turn my feet in now. I'm also, this week was not the best. I got, for my 27.5s, last Sunday I did do over 26 laps. I did like 26 and a third. We didn't do a 27.5 on the two. I have two practices in the middle of the week, and one of the practices we didn't do a 27.5 because our head ref came in and went over the rules for us, and he did like an extensive. I mean, like we're gonna go over everything in the rules, and yeah, he probably took like close to hour 20 minutes or something like that. I mean, he really got in depth on the rules. So the next practice, we did two 27.5s. We did one at the beginning of practice, and then we did one at the very end of practice. The last thing we did was 27.5. And I will admit, I showed up, I was tired. I had tried to take a nap earlier in the day, and I couldn't. So I was actually yawning on my way to practice. That's how bad it was. I was like, oh, Christ, this is not going to be the best practice I ever had. I was yawning on the way to practice. And even though I was hydrated pretty well, because I drank like 60 ounces of water before I went, I didn't eat well. What did I have for dinner? I had 6 White Castle cheeseburgers. No. That is not the sort of meal you should have before going to practice. I did. I felt it. I mean, I felt it. And it was hot. The heat was blasting. And it was hot. I mean, it was hot and it was stuffy. And I think just about everyone was dying a little bit. It really was. It was real uncomfortable, but we did it because that's what we do. But physically, I think this was the most demanding. This last practice was the most physically demanding I've had because we did a lot of blocking. I've actually been doing some weird stretches where I get my foot up against the wall and I push it so it's like at a right angle to my body, and I get down in a squat and hold it for like 30 seconds on each side so that I can try to stretch out my legs so I can get my heels turned in for plowing, because it was like I showed my coach. I said, I can't turn my heels. I can't push my heels out. And she's like, well, push it out now. And I said, I can't. I said, I'm like trying to squat down and push my heel out. And I go, my wheels are sticking to the floor. I said, and I think it's because I'm pushing down at the same time, and I just, it's sticking. I don't know what it is. Someone I used to work out with at York said she does think, and she says this is legit criticism. She says, and I'm doing this because I don't want to hurt you or anything. But she goes, you do tend to skate upright, and you need to be a lot more flexible. You're actually a bit rigid when you skate. And I said, I know, guilty. I said, part of the thing I was doing, we were doing our 27.5s on the last practice, was I could feel myself popping up a lot. And I said, when I go back and think about what I did on the practice where I had 26.5 laps compared to what I did on the last practice, where both times I actually did like a 25.5. And I think the first time I did like a 5:22. The second time I did like a 5. No, first time I did a 5:21. And the second time I did a 5:22. So I did 25.5s both times. But it could have been better. And I said the big difference behind that was when I did my 26.5 laps, I was doing a lot more crossovers and I was staying a lot lower. So I was getting great push-offs, whereas I wasn't doing that this time. So I said, yeah, I'm really trying to learn to stay down lower so that I'm getting a better push-off, and I'm learning how to get better extension. I'm doing actually better extension on my crossovers to push out. And that was the other thing she said. She goes, you don't get a good extension on your crossovers. I said, I'm getting there. I said, she really hasn't seen me doing stuff like this for a while, but it is. I'm getting better extension. So I can feel it. There's times when I really hit the crossovers when I'm coming out of a turn, and I can like feel the acceleration as I'm coming out of the turn. So, yeah, stay low. And considering we have tier 2 assessments in 2 weeks, yeah, I'm seriously going to be doing that. Staying low, getting low. I got to, it's going next level now. Like I said, we did a lot of blocking our last practice, and a lot of it was one-on-one blocking where you had one person in the front who's basically doing like a plow stop, and you have a person pushing behind you. And at first it was like, push, and then we learned how to go back and forth laterally across the track. And then it was like, okay, push and go lateral. So, we do everything. We stair step it up. We build it up. And, oh man, even the person I was working with, it was like after like a minute of doing that, it's like, oh, my hip flexors are killing me, and there was a couple of times when me and my partner, we were going at it really hard. I mean, just like we were moving pretty quick, doing our best. In fact, the coach actually came over at one point. She was like, you guys just change partners whenever you feel like it. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, we were going at it pretty hard. I did get complimented on some of my footwork. It was like, yeah, you're getting across the track pretty good. So, and I see, it's been months since I've done this stuff. That was one of the things I pointed out the other day. Is like, I haven't been in a scrimmage in 3 months. I mean, seriously, legitimately, I have not been in a scrimmage in 3 months. So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing right now, I have not done for 3 months. And it's really, and now I got to get back into shape. But yeah, that was the one thing I noticed was physically it stepped up. And I did tell that to one of my teammates. I go, this is what we're going to be doing from now on. I go, this is it. This is just going to start. It's just going to start getting worse from this point on, because tier 2 assessments are going to be the practices starting after Christmas, and it'll go on for 3 practices, just like we did with tier 1. Once we pass tier 2, then we're in with the vets. after and that's going to be like, oh my God. And it is, it's going to be, this is it, this is it, kids. You're ready to move on. So I'm looking forward to passing tier 2, and I really am. I know there's a good possibility there's one or two things. I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. There's one or two things I know I'm probably going to get a 2 in. And I'm hoping to get 3s. I'm sure there's a couple of things I'll get 4s in. And I'll get some 3s. And I probably will get a couple of 2s. But I will pass tier 2. And then it's going on to tier 3. And tier 3 is basically you're working with the vets. And I'll work on my form to get my speed up so that I can get this 27.5. Because last night I could feel the self-doubt starting to creep in again. And I finally said, you know what? I'm sitting here thinking, I'm counting. In the last 6 27.5s, no, 7 27. I've done 7 27.5s. I think I've done 7 25. Sunday. No, I've done 6. Yeah, I've done 6. So in the last 6 27.5s, I've done over 26 laps, half of those times. Yeah. And I've done 26.5 laps. I've done 26 and a third laps. So I actually got into the pay no attention to me. I'm like a cat all of a sudden. I had to actually stop myself and go, look, you can do this. You get into the proper skating position. You get around traffic. You'll get this. You've already come close to getting it. Almost 2 weeks ago, I almost had it. I was a half a lap off. I was 7 seconds off. So it's like, if you could do it then, you could do it now. It's just a matter of you got to get into the right shape. You got to maintain the right skating position. You've got to do the right things to be able to get it. You really have to. And a lot of the stuff that was happening to me was I was losing momentum in both the 27.5s and the last practice. I was losing momentum because of things I was doing in terms of skating around the track. I lost momentum. And at one point, I actually allowed myself to get hung up in traffic. And that did hurt. And that was one thing I said to myself. I go, I have to learn how to get through traffic better. Because that's part of being derby. I'd like to be a pivot. Well, what's a pivot do sometimes? Well, pivot jams sometimes. Well, what does a jammer have to do? A jammer has to get through traffic. Yeah, I have to learn how to do that better. And I have to learn how to do it at speed. Because seriously, if you do it enough time and it holds you up for like 10 seconds, say throughout the entire time that you're skating, if the entire amount of time you lost off your speed is like 10 seconds over the course of 5 minutes, doesn't sound like much. But 2 Sundays ago, I was only 7 seconds away from doing a 27.5. 10 seconds would have put me 3 seconds ahead of that time. And instead of getting a 5:07, I would have gotten instead of getting a 5:07, I would have gotten a 4:57. Yeah. Big difference. That 10 seconds over the course of 5 minutes could be the difference between skating 26 and a half laps and actually skating 27 and a quarter. Seriously. I was explaining it to my friend the other day. One of my friends who follows me on Derby. And I said, when you're skating at 27.5 speed, you're basically covering about 16 and a half feet, or about 16 feet total, every second. Every second, you're covering about 16 feet. So when I told her, I said, so when I'm saying I'm like half a second a lap off on every lap, that means I'm skating 8 feet less than what I need to skate. And that's not even like a hash mark on the track, because we usually measure things out on the track in 10-foot increments. And that's not even like a hash mark. It's not. It's 8 feet. And, I said, it's ludicrous when you think about it, that what you're actually talking about. When I got 26 and a half laps, I said, what I'm talking about is I was skating 8 feet less every lap. So instead of in one 11-second segment, instead of skating 180 feet, which is the length of the track, I was skating 172 feet in 11 seconds. I said, that's the freaking difference. It really is. I said, that's the freaking difference between getting a 27.5 and getting 26 and a half laps. Is 8 feet, which, she's like, that's, it's really, she's like, that's incredible when you think about it. And I said, it is. It's crazy when you think about it, because we're moving at such great speed that, the amount of distance that we're covering is minuscule. But you take 8 feet and you multiply it by 27 laps. If you're doing that every lap, you're 8 feet off. It's not even that, because if you think, it's even less than that. It's an incredible short distance. I mean, you're talking about a matter of feet per lap that you're missing out on. It's really incredible. I will get there. My goal still is, I think by the end of this year, I could do my 27.5. I do. I mean, I've come close. I can get over 26 laps. I didn't do it the last few times, but I've been getting over 25 laps each time. And that's what I really wanted to work toward, was every time I go around, I never do less than 25 laps. And now I'm kind of like, I really want to get closer to 26 again. Yesterday, I cleaned off all my bearings and all my wheels. I know that'll help with my speed a little bit. But yeah, after talking with the person I know down in York, it's like, you're right. I got to get lower. I got to stay lower. And that's what's going to help me. And also learning how to stretch out, learning to get a little bit more flexible, because I do know I don't have a lot of flexibility. It took me a while to figure out how to actually get my hips open enough to be able to do a good transition, because that killed me for the longest time. And one of the things I used to do is I would actually open my legs, open my knees, and put them against the wall at the rink and just pull myself against the wall. You put your skates parallel to the wall and then just pull Open your hips as wide as you can and then pull yourself into the wall. That's how I opened my hips, was by doing that. And I've actually showed that exercise to some of the tots that I work with, saying, if you want to learn how to open your hips, this is a way to do it. And so one of the things, like I said, one of the things I started doing last night was I pigeon toe my foot in and then put it flat again. I mean, actually just push my legs so my foot is flat against the wall with my toe facing in. And then I go down into a squat. And the thing you have to do is you go into a squat, but you want to keep your body straight. You don't want to turn it because that makes it too easy. So I'm really just like pushing myself against the wall in that position so that I can better turn in my foot, because I'm stretching out the muscles on the side to be able to do that. And I'm strengthening that too. And I'm pushing down as I'm doing it with my heel, because that's what you really need to do for a good plow. And I did it like 30 seconds on one side, then I switched over to the other foot and did it 30 seconds on the other side. And I did that a couple of times, and I'm going to work that up, but that's going to become like a regular thing that I need to do. Even at the rink, I can do that where, get your skate up against the wall and push and hold it to stretch those muscles out, to get that flexibility, because that's how I got to the point where I could open up my hips. And believe me, when I first started doing transitions, I could not open my hips. I couldn't. I had no flexibility there. And it took me a while to actually be able to get to the point where I could open my hips up. But now I can do that with ease, and I can do it from both sides now. So the thing with the plows is stretching out the legs that way, getting them down, pushing into the heel, and seeing how that goes. Just working on that movement. That's one of the things I need to do. And I will. I'll get there. Don't worry. I'm not. It's one of my old coaches used to say that one of the things she liked about me was the fact that I knew when I was doing something wrong, and I would analyze how to do it right. She said, I always liked that about you, is that when you're doing something wrong and you're figuring out how to change it. And I know I'm doing something wrong here. I know it. So I know it needs to be done to change that. I said a lot of what I'm going through right now is actually having to break a lot of bad habits that I had developed over the last year and make it work. So seriously, I am. I'm really working hard to try to make this work, because I know in a month I'll be working with vets and they are not going to be forgiving. No, they're not. They're just going to be like, come here. Come here. Yeah. So I will get it. I will get it. I will become a very good blocker. Not a very good blocker. I will become quite a good blocker. I will be an exceptional blocker. I will be an excellent blocker. And I hope to be an excellent pivot too, which means I need to up my speed and learn how to get through packs. And I will do it. I will do it. That's what I want to do. I actually told that to the coach who came in and coached us after the ball. It was funny. She broke us into two groups, and she was making comments about what she thought. Oh, you guys will probably want to do this and this and this, And I said, I want to be a pivot. And she looked at me. She was like, really? I said, yeah. I said, that's really the one thing I would like to be, is to pivot. And she said, well, I used to be a pivot too. So, I'm all for that. But yeah, I'd like to be a pivot. Mainly because I think I could play good O and defense. and I got a big mouth, so I can call out stuff. Look out! But no, that's the one position. I know I can block. I've blocked, but I would really love to be a pivot as well. Part-time jammer, you know. Here's the star, take off. We'll see. Because I was, you know, I can get my speed up and learn how to get through people. And not just bang against them. I can do it. So get the self-doubt out of the head. Because the self-doubt doesn't help at all. I've noticed that. It ends up hurting me more than it helps me. And I haven't had a lot of self-doubt. It really has come down to I have a much more positive attitude. But I have to keep reminding myself. And the fact, it's like I said, I started to get down on myself a little bit last night. And stop it. You know, in the last 2 weeks, you've had 6 27.5s, and 3 of them were over 26 laps. In fact, one was 26 and a half. You can do this. You were that close to doing it. You know, you can do this. It's just a matter of technique. I've got the speed. A lot of it is the technique now. Because the speed isn't going to hurt you when you're coming out of a turn, losing speed, and you're having to work that much harder to get that speed back up. And then you do the same thing again at the next turn. That's what kills you. It's when I think back of what I did in my last practice on my last 2 27.5s, really it was a lot of old habits that came back and burned me. Yes, I was able to get 25 laps. But if I'd been doing it right, I could have easily done 26. Yeah. So it's all a matter of technique now. It's not a matter of, do I have the speed? Yeah, I do. I have the speed. I have the endurance. I can keep going for 27 laps. And I can actually push myself when I have to, because I've done it at the end where I've actually pushed myself. You know, that was what ended up happening with the last time I did 26 laps was we got to the halfway point. They called out halfway, and I was at 13 laps. And I was like, well, I'm on track for 26. Let's push. And that was when I got 26 and a third laps because I was actually pushing it out a little harder on the last half. The last 2.5 minutes, I was pushing it a little harder. So I was able to get around the track a little bit further instead of just hitting 26 exactly. So I did push myself. But if I'd pushed myself harder at the beginning, it's when you hit that 13 and a half foot mark. It's when you hit that 13 and a half lap mark and then they call out halfway. And you kind of go, okay. Now, one of the things that we've started doing is skating 27 laps exactly and taking the time off of that. So, you know, that makes it a little more difficult. When you're skating 5 minutes, you have time references, but it doesn't really give you an idea of whether or not you can actually skate 27 laps. Now we're skating 27 laps, which is what we're going to be doing from now on until we get it. That's the one thing we do every practice, 27.5. And it's actually, the more you do it, the better you get. So, okay, well, I've talked long enough. I'm coming up on 59 minutes right there. I'm pointing up at the corner of the screen. So almost an hour. I've talked enough. I didn't really get a chance to talk about what I wanted to talk about, so I will actually do that next week. Yeah, I did have something in mind that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't. So, oh well, shit happens. I'll talk to you then. See you then. Take care. Bye.